We all know how important testing is. It's how you discover bugs in your software, or whether your new apps and features work the way they should. But which tests do you need to run? Find out with Resilient. We set new standards in the world of testing as a service. Our experts cover every stage of every test, so you'll have the right people with the right skills running the right tests for you. Everything you want to know is displayed on a comprehensive dashboard. It's tailored to your needs. And with 24/7 monitoring, you're instantly alerted if a critical user story fails. Peace of mind for a simple, fixed monthly rate. It's time to identify and iron out the bugs, bring your products and features to market sooner, and deliver greater user satisfaction. Ask Resilient for your demonstration today. Resilient, guardians of the connected world.
Frontier. And yep, plenty of place up at the front. So, firstly, I'll introduce myself. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Owen O'Sullivan. Yes, that's pronounced Owen. I'm not sure I'm brave enough to do it, but I'm tempted to introduce you. You may be familiar with the Van Morrison song Gloria, where he teaches you how to spell the name Gloria. Gloria, Gloria. So my name is Eoghan, okay? Just remember that. Someday I might record that one. So anyway, it's very nice to be here. I'm delighted to be hosting the conference this year. Of course, I'll be taking care of you tomorrow as well for the unconference day, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later on. If you are a social media person, and if you're posting on LinkedIn about this, if you're posting on the other platform, I think just you can stop now actually and just delete your account. But the hashtag is HbbTV London. The Wi-Fi, that's what you need for the Wi-Fi. CHW guest, that's Church House Westminster guest, and Westminster 1. Everybody got that? Anyway, it's on signs around the place. We're going to have Slido in operation. You can use Slido to submit questions if you want. You go to slido.com. If you go to slido.com/HbbTV London, you'll get there. On the other hand, I would much rather you just put your hand up and just ask your questions, because I will be mobile. I'm going to move around the room and I'll come to you with a microphone if you want to ask questions. So I hope we will have time for questions, lots of questions today. That will be up to our speakers. So I'm hoping our speakers will be able to stick to the time that we give them. Most of our slots are 15 minutes. We've asked the speakers to speak for 10 minutes. And if we think about this as a broadcast, those who are standing at the back, by the way, there are still some places in the front here you can take. If you think about this as a broadcast, that's 10 minutes of broadcast. But if we measure it more like streaming, we've about 250 people by 10 minutes. So that's about 44 hours or so, I think, of speaking, not 10 minutes of speaking. So it's a lot of time you're getting to deliver your message to this audience here in front of us. What else do I have to tell you? Very important. If you go to the HbbTV website, click your way through to the event pages for this event, there is a link to the unconference hub. In fact, that's more like an event hub for the event, because you can find the participant list there. You can find the ideas that have already been submitted for the unconference there. Although keep in mind, those ideas will only appear on the agenda if those people pitch them tomorrow morning. So just because you've submitted an idea in the with the form on the website, it doesn't mean it's definitely going to be a session tomorrow during our unconference. So you find the participant list, and that's also where you are going to be submitting session reports tomorrow, and that's very important. The password for that section is London 2024. And if you're curious about looking back at last year's session reports from last year's HbbTV Symposium, Naples 2023 is the password. You see a pattern. We want to say a big thank you to all of our sponsors. It's not cheap holding an event in a venue like this, you can imagine. What an amazing venue. I think we should congratulate the organizers, for of which I'm not one, by the way. This is not self-congratulations, nothing to do with me. It's a great venue, right? So most of you came into the hall through the back door here. If you go out through Bishop A's over here, just in the back corner, you can then turn left or right for the two exhibition rooms. So there's not just the room you were in at the start, and coffee breaks and lunch will be served in both of those rooms. So don't get stuck, everyone, into one room. Spread yourselves between the two rooms. So let me take a look at how we're doing on time. Oh, this is fantastic news. The conference just started 1 minute ago, apparently. So what I'd like to do next, we have some short elevator pitches from each of our main sponsors. And I would like them all to come up along the side of the stage here, if they could do that. Those who are giving those elevator pitches, just line yourselves up there. As you come onto the stage, I'm going to give you a microphone. Oops. And we're going to set a timer of 1 minute for each of you. The timer will be on the screen here. And if you could try and stick to that minute, that would be fantastic. So let's see who's first up. It's Paul Martin from Ocean Blue Software. Paul, stage is yours.
Good morning, great to see you here. Just a quick introduction to Ocean Blue. So we're a software services house based in Bristol. We're a little bit unusual in that we've got a specialist focus on smart TV. We're really big into open source software. We've created two communities ourselves, one based around HbbTV. So, and also I think we're very active in the HbbTV ecosystem, and we're pretty much involved at every stage, from test development, test review, test harnesses, browser development, integration in TV sets, app development, cloud services to sit behind it. I think that's really what makes us distinct. Ocean Blue's grown 3 times in terms of revenue and people in the last 3 years, and that's driven by HbbTV, which is why we're proud to be a diamond sponsor.
Great. Am I on? Many thanks. Which room are you in? Paul, you're exhibiting in?
We're in the Hall Memorial
on the left-hand side there.
Come
okay,
and see us.
Great. Thank you. Okay, next up, Vincent Gattone. Speaking on behalf of DotScreen, JW Player, and Conatix. Vincent, take it away.
Hello everybody. Vince representing DotScreen and together with JWP and Kinetics. So DotScreen, we're a French-based company working strictly in the video streaming sector. So we provide video streaming application front ends for all connected devices, very active within the HbbTV community, together with working with France 24, France TV, TF1, these types of things. We worked strictly on the front end development application. So again, creating very featherweight, lightweight applications to optimize on all the different connected devices. Together with JWP and Kinetics, we're bringing more of a full end-to-end solution, connecting with the video pipeline for JW Player, offering a full streaming service together with the advertising. The advertising pipeline. So, we're very proud to be a Diamond sponsor. And together we're going to be exhibiting in I'm not sure what the name of that hall is. This one over here.
The Hall.
The hall, yes.
Yeah.
So
Bishop
we'll be
Hall,
exhibiting there with our full demo. So please come by.
Great, thank you very much. Antonio from Couchplay, next up. Keep that microphone nice and close. You got a timer there. Off you go. 1 minute.
Great. What a location. We're into instant gaming, and we want to show you in the 2 days how we help TV manufacturer to boost TV hardware sales, get more users active, and unlock new revenues by advertising. That's it.
Wow. Okay.
Simple business case and fun.
You have an exhibition booth?
Yes. Right one.
Okay, right-hand side out there. That's good. You have 37 seconds you can use next year, okay? When you sponsor again. Thank you.
I don't know who's next.
Okay, next up it's Kineton, Matteo Venturelli. You got a timer here, Matteo. Off you go.
So I believe that most of you knows Kineton. For those who don't, Kineton is an Italian company focused in several markets: aerospace, defense, automotive, telco, and media, of course. We are here to present to you our MediaCert platform, which help you to test your devices and applications. So please visit us at our booth on the right, I believe, and please come and join us, and let's see.
Great. Wow, you have 30 seconds next year as well. Thank you very much. Good. Next up, Fabio Guarnaccia from Media for Europe. Here you go, Fabio. Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, everyone.
1 minute here, please, on the timer. Thanks.
Yeah. So from MediaSet, you know, it's a leader commercial broadcaster in Italy. We have 15 free channels. We are leader on digital audience too with Infinity. And we are here again, as always, to sustain and reaffirm our strong belief in open tech standards such as HbbTV. At our stand, we have the first European DVB-I trial to market. So we have in Italy tens of thousands of television, real and actual commercial devices from the shelf and real users. Beside this trial, we brought our phase 2 POC on target advertising in DVB-I environment, and both the trial and the POC, of course, rely on a stronger and stronger relationship and collaboration between HbbTV and DVB standard. Thank you. So see you at our booth, which is in our memorial at number 6.
Good.
And see you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you. You borrowed some time. So it's Resilient next up. Bob Campbell. Timer here, Bob. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. So Resilient's a total global quality services provider. We are across HbbTV, ATSC in the US, working with operators in the mobile space and telco space, delivering solutions and working with our partners to get value out, get services that deliver value to the organizations and to consumers. We've had a long history in HbbTV, and we're demonstrating over in our booth right out the door there our latest additions to the leading test harness Legada for HbbTV. So come along and have a look.
Thanks, Bob. Next up, Leander Carell. We will be hearing from you later in the conference program, but right now it's time for your pitch. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Leander Carell. I was co-founder managing director of Nautilus, which is meanwhile a proud part of the Equative Group, an ad-serving SSP and DSP company we belong to. We provide an SSAI and server-side ad insertion solution. What makes us unique is that we can help broadcasters to monetize both in the OTT streaming, but also in the broadcast area. So we have a solution which finally monetizes in CTV, but also in HbbTV broadcast, and I will tell you more about this this afternoon. Yeah, we have a booth. Come by, we can show you something and introduce also some nice features today that we will launch quickly with a large broadcaster, and happy to show this. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next up, we have Niall Ferguson from SourcePoint.
Much, thank you.
Niall, timer there.
And go. Okay, I'm going to use my 60 seconds with a quick who, what, why, where. Firstly, who? I'm Niall Ferguson. I'm the Managing Director for Europe for SourcePoint. On to what? SourcePoint is a privacy technology company, and what we provide is the consent management platform, arguably the frontline privacy solution for many of Europe's leading publishers, media companies, and content providers. Why? Well, I think we'll hopefully agree privacy is important and getting more and more important, whether it's the encouragement and enforcement of our regulators, the growth of personal data enriched programmatic advertising, and the inarguable value of having a well thought through privacy strategy. And on to where. So SourcePoint are based in New York, London, Berlin, and we have a team in Madrid. And today we're based in Church House, in the booth, just through those doors there. And we'd love to speak to you about all your privacy challenges. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Niall. Bang on. Frode from Xperi. Now you have a couple of slides, I think, to show. Is that right?
Well, I have actually a video. Hopefully.
Well, you can click through with
so,
that.
Yeah, I'm Frode from Xperi, which is now owning Vute. So I'm Frode from Vute, and work with TiVo. So I'm Frode from TiVo. And
Can we play that video?
Can you play that video? Yeah. So we're rolling out a new platform for smart TVs, and here's just 30 seconds pitch for that. Oh, there. Now it's. Okay, so come to us, see it live. We have it over in our booth. And especially, we're now searching partnerships all over Europe, content owners, broadcasters, pay TV operators. All of you, please come by, and we'll talk about how we can help you. You can help us. Thank you.
Thanks, Frode. And finally, completing the lineup, we have, just one moment, Ricardo from YouView. Ricardo.
Good morning, HbbTV Symposium. I'm here representing YouView today. We are a tech company, a joint venture between the public service broadcasters in the UK, BBC, ITV, Channel 4, Channel 5, and leading telcos like BT and TalkTalk. Throughout the day, you will hear a lot of mention about a brilliant product called Freely. Freely has launched earlier in the year and is available as an HbbTV op-app across a range of smart TVs in the country. And we have been Everyone TV's proud technology partner in building this product. So if you have any questions about how we went about building it, we will make it worth the walk into our joint Everyone TV and YouView stand, and we'd be happy to address your questions. Thank you and see you later.
Thank you, Ricardo. So this is great. I mentioned sometimes that I'm Irish, as you can probably see from my name or hear from my voice, but I actually am Swiss also since a couple of years ago. And so timing is very important. In fact, it's the main reason I'm here in front of you today, to ensure that we keep things on time, and we're well on time now, which is great news. What I want to say to you is a couple more things. You'll notice that you don't have tables in front of you. This is partly because we wouldn't have space to have tables for everybody in this room. 250 plus people registered for the event, which is fantastic. But it's also because we want you to lean forward today and engage today. So if you had a desk in front of you, it would be much easier to put your laptop on the desk and to do your email and to tune out. You don't have that. You need to work a little bit harder. So we're hoping that we'll have your attention throughout the day. The other thing that I wanted to mention to you is that we don't really have time to do some, networking right now among you, but I do want you to just take a look around you at the people to your left and to your right, and resolve to say hello to those people if you don't know them already as you're going back out for coffee or lunch, okay? Take the opportunity to say hello, introduce yourself, and make sure that you make new connections here. Tomorrow we are doing an unconference. If you have never been to an unconference before, please stand up. Please stand up if you have never been to an unconference. Well, this is great news, because you can sit down now. It means that more than half of you have been to an unconference before, so you're really going to get the best out of it. And what I always say about the unconference is, if you go home at the end of the day tomorrow and you think to yourself, that wasn't much use, that was a bit of a waste of time, well, that's your fault, okay? Because you control the agenda. If you have challenges or problems or questions in your company, in your organization, put them on the agenda and find the answers. You've got copyright Gordon Maynard, a quality audience here, very little riffraff. So make sure you use this audience and find the answers to those questions. It's your opportunity. We will have a blank agenda tomorrow morning. That agenda represents opportunity for you. So please take the opportunity tomorrow. With all of that said, it gives me great pleasure to invite Vincent Grivet to the stage. By the way, speakers, you can either stand at the podium or you can take the handheld mic and wander around a little bit. I don't know which Vincent is going to do. There's a handheld there for you. And as we all know, Vincent is the chair of the I nearly said a different organization, chair of the HbbTV Association, and he is going to give us the state of the HbbTV nation. Vincent, over to you.
Thank you, Owen. Good morning, everybody. It's really a great pleasure. It's a pleasure every year to be at the symposium. Very special pleasure today because I never seen so many people in HbbTV, so that's very welcome. Thank you for coming. And it's also a great pleasure to be in London. I have been in this position quite a few years now. And in my time, at least, Symposium has never been in London. And I think it's a very, very important thing that we are in London, because UK is a very important country in the HbbTV community and ecosystem. And hopefully, and I think it's the case, and we'll hear more of that, HbbTV is very important to the UK TV ecosystem. So I think it's very good that we meet here in this great place. I would like to thank especially Jonathan Thompson and Everyone TV, who are co-hosting the symposium with the HbbTV Association, and all the sponsors and also the organization team. I know that I have a tight surveillance from Owen on my timing, so I need to rush and get started after these introductions. I would like to make a few observations on what has happened around us in the TV environment in this closing 2024 year. My observation number one is that, and this is not entirely new, but we can see a confirmation of that. We can see the legacy traditional broadcasters enhancing, accelerating their shift to streaming. And we can see that they start to be pretty successful in doing that. And we're hearing a lot of good news, whether it's in France, in Germany, in other countries, that they are actually doing a good job in reinventing themselves into broader streaming companies. The second observation, which is a little bit the negative version of the first, is that on the opposite, those companies who have invented streaming and SVOD, so to speak, and who have been so successful with that, they start, or they give a number of signals that they start to see some limit to their growth. And certainly they're not going to disappear, but they're probably they are not going to make everybody else disappear. The third observation, and that goes into the same direction, that the world is slightly more complex than something being removed and something else replacing everything. Linear TV certainly is challenged, but even in the US, linear TV is resisting. And there are many signals that, of course, the exact weight depends from country to country, but there is like a robust, stable, like unremovable basis of linear TV that is still here. And the fourth observation, and that is probably the one that is accelerating a lot recently, is what I would call, and this is not a very nice word, the OSization of the TV sets. And what I mean with that is that we can see a flourishing of operating system for TVs, and we just heard one from TiVo, and there are many of them, and they become increasingly important on TV sets. And that is not without asking a few questions. So in summary, this 2024 has really confirmed to us these trends that traditional broadcasters move to streaming, SVOD is hitting some limits, linear TV is not dead, TV OS are very important, and I think this is confirming a world, and you have heard me saying that before, we are in a world where streaming and broadcast do share the leadership. We are in a co-leadership situation. This means it's a hybrid world, and this means it's a world where HbbTV is super relevant. It's relevant because it's a natural and friendly path for the broadcasters to bring their streaming versions. It applies to all TV brands, all networks, and I would like to thank all the TV manufacturers who are present here and who are making within the HbbTV Association and in their labs, in their factories, they're making a great work to have HbbTV compliant TV sets. HbbTV is the natural platform to bring addressable advertising in linear, and we'll hear a lot of that because, of course, that's where the money comes from. And HbbTV is an open standard which aligns with the market aspirations for open ecosystems, avoiding tough, entrenched position. So that's the world. What happened in our smaller HbbTV world? Well, it's been a year, 2024. Maybe this can still be challenged in the remaining 6 weeks of the year. But it's been a year without a publication of a specification. It doesn't mean we're not working, and you'll hear more from John Pising, who will present the status. But we have a very important piece cooking, which is 205. And a very important element in this 205 is going to be an add-on document that we're going to publish, which is going to be the HbbTV DRM guidelines. Very important. You'll hear John Pising on that. We have maintained our very strong pace, and I'm very happy with that, of our interop events. They had been paused, of course, like many other things, for the COVID, They have now restarted, and now we have a stable pace of having 3 of them every year, and they are big success, very important events for the community. We have also more discreetly deployed a number of initiatives to improve the usability of HbbTV in our ecosystem. And to mention a few, we have a totally revamped developer portal, and I see that the usage of that is very important, and I encourage all of you to visit and use this portal. Very, very important. We are now bringing in consistency with these DRM guidelines, which I announced. We are bringing a lot of new DRM tests into our test suite so that we have completeness. We are in the process of bringing into HbbTV a minimum test harness that's not going to replace the commercial test harness of the market, but that is going to help the community of people and companies working on the HbbTV test to be more efficient. And we have issued a major test maintenance RFP, which gave birth to 2 significant contracts with 2 important companies who are present in the room today for test maintenance. And we will probably announce today or those days a server for a contract for an ADB2 DNS server. And all together, and the zoo directory, not to forget the zoo directory. We have invested altogether more than 250,000 euro of the members' money in those initiatives. At our scale, it is a lot of money, but I think it's very well spent money that goes into the direction again of making HbbTV more usable for the ecosystem. And we have been lucky to see some signals, and you will hear more of that in the conference, that this is recognized by the market, and HbbTV is confirming its market relevance, where Dataxis, and you were awfully saying more on that HbbTV now becomes a very significant addressable segment in Europe. And we have been seeing very recently Google announcing that they have made an HbbTV version of their SDK, which for linear addressable advertising, which I believe is a signal of recognition of HbbTV as a mass market tool. HbbTV TA, and you will hear more of that today, is now a mainstream adopted tangible specification. And maybe the final point which I want to comment on our 24 history is our membership, where maybe the news is a little bit less positive because we can see some decrease in our membership. I would say this is highly linked to the fact that some companies merge and consolidate. We have very valuable members, which we thank for their loyalty, but there is slightly less of them. And maybe at some point, that will bring some questions on our financing. What's next? We'll just continue. We will continue our normal operations, test, webinars, PlugFest specifications. And of course, as I said, the very important point is to deliver our 205 specification with the DRM guidelines. Hopefully, we're going to continue to harvest the results of our efforts on test maintenance and the usability of HbbTV. And we will keep our ecosystem dynamic and attractive. And when I see again this very big audience, I'm very optimistic with that. And we're going to think of what else can we do to increase the usability of HbbTV for the app developers and for the manufacturers who implement HbbTV. And we're going to do all of that with the members and with the users of HbbTV. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Vincent. Thank you. So I'm going to come to the floor for questions in a moment. We heard a lot of good news there, Vincent. But I think a gathering like this, it's important for us to look realistically at the world as well. Are there some things that you're nervous about?
I'm nervous about our ability to continue to deliver something that works and that meets the expectations of the app developers and of the implementers, because we have a rather sophisticated specification. I don't think we need to keep making it more sophisticated or marginally. I think most of what people, viewers, app developers need is present in the specification, even the more when we published 205 with this DRM, which was one important missing thing. So from the spec point of view, I think we're all good. Excuse the lack of humility. I think the challenge is really...
Sorry, Raj.
I think the challenge is really to keep delivering and putting everybody in the ecosystem with what their needs in their hands, in their pockets, to use the specification and to have a quick cycle of delivery. And that's the challenge.
You mentioned during your presentation the wonderful support from the TV manufacturers. Do you see enemies? Do you see forces that are acting against HbbTV and what HbbTV wants to achieve?
No, I don't have enemies. I hope I don't have enemies in the room. No, I think the question of friends and enemies doesn't happen like that. I think we are at the center of an open ecosystem. For some companies, it's very natural to participate proactively and spontaneously in this open ecosystem. Some companies may have other views, but in the end, they realize that it is a big ecosystem. And even if they maintain another strategy, they can't ignore HbbTV. So I think we have only loyal supporters and members.
Well, that's good news. Let's turn to some of those supporters and members now. Does anybody have a question at the start of this event for Vincent, for our chair, based on anything that he said there? I had a quick look at Slido a moment ago. I didn't see anything. Yeah, we do have a question. I'm going to hop down, Raj, if that's okay.
Thanks, Paul Gray from Omdia. I just wondered if you had any comment to make about breakout of HbbTV from Europe into other regions and countries in DVB land.
Yeah, that's a very relevant observation, Paul. And I could maybe even have sort of mentioning it in my keynote. And indeed, I do see a growing and now maturing interest of non-European markets for HbbTV. I can feel that. I'm very happy with that. I can see an interest even from the United States, but I don't think United States will ever implement HbbTV. But I think they are intellectually interested because they realize that we've done something that seems to be working, and they are trying to get some inspiration, and we're happy to share that inspiration. I think what you had in mind and what I have in mind is more the Middle East area, where indeed this was widely out of our radar screen for many years, but now I'm receiving some calls and emails from companies from this area, Middle East, Africa. They are deploying in many places DVB network, whether it's satellite or terrestrial. Even in some markets, they don't have broadcast, but still they have an interest for HbbTV, and I see that as like a next chapter.
Thank you, Vincent. Ranjit from DTG, and then we'll come to Marco from Mediaset.
Hi, Vincent. Good morning. As the world is moving towards streaming, HbbTV stands for Hybrid Broadcast Broadband TV. Now, going into the TV, when the IP transitions will take place, is there anything in the horizon, in a roadmap, to develop a lightweight specification just for the IP delivery and streaming, taking care of the HbbTV? This is to target the devices which are handheld, tablets, TVs, and so on. So that's my question.
So are we talking about taking one of the Bs out of HbbTV?
Well, I don't want to spoil the presentation from Jonathan and everyone TV, but I think we don't need to develop something, because Freely is the perfect example of a service which is totally streaming-minded, IP-minded, which is based on HbbTV. So we have it already. But again, I don't want to spoil everyone TV.
Thank you, Vincent. Marco from Mediaset.
First of all, everybody, good morning. I'm really appreciating the DRM in 205, because DRM was a milestone that has never been presented in HbbTV, but it was very important and I really appreciate it. What about the next future, considering copyright protection guidelines? That is the next step after DRM.
I must confess, Marco, I have no clue on that. To me, this is a new topic. Thank you for raising the question. And with the steering group, we every year, of course, we make like a post-mortem debrief of the symposium, and I'm sure your question will be part of that debrief, and maybe we'll find we need to do something. No personal clue on that.
And of course, we have the benefit of having an unconference day tomorrow. So if somebody feels Vincent, I think we'll leave it there. We'll keep ahead of our time actually here, because it's good to have this little bit of space for questions. Thank you very much for your presentation. Round of applause for Vincent, please. Andrea Michelozzi tells me that we are streaming on 12 different platforms at the moment, and we have rather remarkably 1,800 people watching us on YouTube apparently, and 230 on X, and VM Partner, I'm not sure what that one is, 600 people on that. So a lot of people watching us online at the moment. Don't be nervous though, don't worry. I have great pleasure in announcing our next speaker, who you all know very well. Super important person in the standard space, not just in HbbTV, but in the DVB project as well. John Pising is going to come and tell us what has been happening with the specification. John.
I'll stand here.
Is that okay, Raj? Don't wander too far.
Okay, so you heard the market stuff. Now I'm going to hit you with some of the more technical stuff. So I thought I'd start by reminding people what we did before. So not just 205, because actually what's landing in TV sets in next year is going to be 204, not 205. So we published 204 March last year, but we have the test suite that the testing group have been working on developing during the course of this year, so to be ready for manufacturers to test and certify product next year. So yes, there is a lead time here that is surprisingly long if you're not actually in the industry. And here's a summary of the key features of 204. So we've not had it mentioned yet. It's been mentioned, there'll be some unconferences on this, is accessibility. And the European Accessibility Act becomes EU law next year. And at least it probably is illegal to sell TVs that don't comply with it. So you can have a debate about what compliance means, and people are trying to write down how they can know that they are compliant, but accessibility is important, particularly given the legal context and the legal changes next year. Integration with DVBI. We'll hear more about this at many points during today, but that's on tomorrow. But this is about the fundamental, the open standard way of streaming as an alternative to siloed applications where the user has to go all the way up and all the way back down again to change channel. Integration with voice assistants. This one has gone off the boil a bit, but it is about fundamental user experience. If the TV allows use of a voice assistant to navigate up to the point of here is a linear channel, to suddenly force the user to use a remote, to pick up the remote control, find the remote control,
once the HbbTV app starts is a poor user experience that ought to be addressed. The other thing that was in 204 and more is coming is deprecation of the less used duplicated features. So this is announcing things we're going to remove because, yeah, they're just a burden on people. And when you get the slides, there is an explainer we published at the time that will give you an overview of all of this. So moving forward to 205, it's coming next year. The most significant additions actually, and this is from a impact on the users and on the market point of view. We've mentioned DRM, I'll say a bit more about DRM later. WebAssembly. Now, WebAssembly, you may not have heard of, it's not necessarily exciting in a way, but what brought home to me how important this was, and the colleagues concerned have a proposal for the unconference tomorrow, is the colleagues from 3CAT in Catalonia who are using WebAssembly for in-vision signing. So they've written a video decoder in WebAssembly that runs in software on smart TVs for the signing stream, and it works. So suddenly, in terms of, we've had plenty of discussions about manufacturers not wanting to support that explicitly, but with WebAssembly it can be delivered implicitly. And that, I think, is, in terms of the other things that that technology can deliver, that has the potential to be really exciting. We're also adding some optional new features, support for new video codecs, AV1 and VVC. AV1 will probably work accidentally in a number of TV sets. We found that HEVC did it a good few years ago, and VVC might. And HTTP3 is something that is sort of coming around the corner, and we want to at least make sure we've got some unit tests, because it can be really embarrassing if something starts working accidentally 2 years after the product was sold and wasn't tested and therefore breaks. I mean, we've had that a few times, that an ISP turns something on and services that worked before broke, and the content provider didn't change anything, nothing changed in the TV set. It was something that neither of them know about. We're also tidying up unused and historical features, and more about that in the next slide. And loads of bug fixes, particularly people working through the HbbTV DVBI integration and pointing out inconsistencies, corner cases, things we've missed. And I would really like to thank everyone who's been contributing to helping us improve that part of the technology. Tidying up. So the first thing that we're tidying up is multi-stream sync. So this is basically video via the broadcast and audio via the OTT. And this is spectacularly complicated to implement. People struggle with it. And the reality, when we wrote it, people were not doing live video via OTT. I mean, this has been around for a while, but now people are doing live video via OTT. So basically, if you want to do this sort of thing, you can send both the video and the audio via OTT. You don't need to have this mixture of one via broadcast and one via OTT. So that removal, that's being removed out of 205. And that's a reason to do 205, because we're not removing it from 204. OTT streaming in MPEG-2 transport streams is being made optional. Again, this is a historical thing that's been there since the very beginning. We're clearing out stuff that doesn't. We know people are using it. We know people are using it to access 10-year-old TV sets. So we're keeping the tests in the test suite, and discussion will be required. We're relaxing the requirements around the built-in fonts. There used to be competition in this market, but one of the providers acquired the other one, and now there isn't any competition anymore. So we're relaxing the requirements to make it easier to use alternatives. And another thing we're just removing completely. There's a web privacy technology called Do Not Trust DNT, which basically died in the web, and supporting it. Do not track. Thank you, Froda. So for those who didn't hear, it's do not track, not do not trust.
Do not trust John Pising, is that what we're hearing?
that if you want to. DRM, so as people have hinted, we had some bad experiences around this one in the past with DRM vendors writing nasty letters to people. And basically, we basically said we're not touching DRM for somewhere between 6 and 8 years, just because the experience was so painful. That resulted, though, in market fragmentation and apps and services saying we're not going to use HbbTV because you don't do DRM, or we can't make it work. So when we had a symposium, I think it was the Madrid symposium, we had feedback, and we went off and started an initiative that Bob will say a little bit about later, about the -DRM reference app. And that's interesting because it also gave us objective data about use of DRM in the market and what versions. So we're now developing a document on integration of HbbTV and DRM. The first version will include Play Ready and Widevine with some objective criteria for including more later. So if you are another one, come and help look at the objective criteria and think about how you could address them. We've got a mixture of material, background material on DRM itself, guidelines for content providers, platforms, operators, and requirements for implementations. We're also collecting dirty and 205 will require terminal support, and I picked the words out of our issue tracking system. Decryption and presentation of DRM protected video and audio broadband content using at least one of the systems in the guidelines. You can use others. You can have ones that are there in the TV but not connected up to HbbTV, but that's the minimum requirement. Since we're on DRM and we mentioned the DRM reference app, I just took a snapshot of the data, the kind of data we get from the -DRM reference app. Bob may say more about it, but you can see here the 2022, 2023 and 24 models. This data is anonymized. I don't know what number 201 is. And then you've got a set of tests with some indications about how well they work. And, well, color coding is relatively obvious and self-explanatory. And no, I don't know what number 186 is. It's none of my business because it's probably one of my competitors. Van will be saying a bit more about the test suite later. I picked this slide out of the most recent report. You can see that the number of tests in the test suite did go up precipitately, but is now going, the gradient has leveled off, and sporadically we go down a bit when somebody finds some bugs that impact a number of tests. So, for instance, there's been a lot of work on the targeted advertising tests when people found issues there to do with sort of frame accurate switching from broadcast to broadband and differences in AV sync. DRM and country-specific tests, this is another thing we put a lot of time into. So what happened when we didn't do anything about DRM was some of the countries and platforms did, and they made their own test suites. And once you have your own test suite for DRM, it grows, and then this complicates the process of implementing and certifying HbbTV. So we went through two of these in considerable detail, being the UK and Italian ones. That's not an insult to anybody else. We reviewed many improvements to find that we needed to make to the DRM guidelines. We've recently made an RFP to bring these into the main test suite, which was what Vincent was referring to. We're focusing initially on tests for the EME API and for the advanced features of the old OIPF DRM agent API. There are 10-year-old tests originally from France for the old API, the basic functionality that are used at least in Australia and Spain. We're going to look at those next. One thing we found was that although these test suites were in theory country or platform specific, then most of the non-DRM tests were not. They actually filled gaps in the test suite. Ideally, the UK and Italy would not need their own country or platform specific HbbTV tests from next year onwards, although obviously this is ultimately their decision, not ours. but that's the discussion we're having. We're working towards that goal, and we're hoping that we can meet their requirements to achieve that. I just made a list of things that are being talked about later, mainly to encourage people to stay rather than leaving at 5 o'clock. So the 1815 panel today will cover the test suite. So if you have more interested in that. It will cover the DRM reference app. It will cover interop events and plugfests, the developer portal, the Dash validator, more on the DRM and country platform-specific test suites. And also, some of those already have topics in the unconference portal for tomorrow and will be proposed. Some of them don't, but please come along and propose them if you want to talk about some of those in the unconference tomorrow. And there we are.
Thank you, John
How
Pising.
badly did I do on time?
Thanks, John. I'm actually going to put a question to both you and Vincent. I mean, I guess you may have something to say about this because of the way the question has been phrased, but it's one that I missed in Slido for you, Vincent. Could HbbTV have a small and medium enterprise membership level like DVB has just introduced and 5G Mag to improve the membership numbers?
We've been considering that possibility a number of times, and we could never conclude that we could both please to the small and medium enterprise who would like to come in as members and at the same time protect the financial stability of HbbTV. So right now, we've not found the right approach to allow for that. I regret, maybe one time we'll find the magic way to do that, but not for the time being.
Thank you. John, specifications.
Well, actually, I was also going to comment on that.
Oh, yes, sorry, I did say you could.
You did
Please
say
do.
I could. So some of you know that I have a number of hats, and one of my other hats is chair of the DVB technical module. So I was involved in the discussions that led to what DVB discussed. So I think once DVB's experiences are clear, maybe that will reduce some of the fears about a small enterprise, small company level undermining things. So I hope that it works for DVB, and if it works for DVB, that then sets a precedent that HbbTV could follow.
And for those who are not in the know about that, what DVB has just introduced is instead of an €8,000 per year fee, it's €2,000 per year for companies that have revenues of less than €3 million per year. And it's, sorry, I'm getting confused with the entrance fee. It's 1,000. Apologies. Thank you, Matthew Huntington. And the same for universities. There's a lower fee for universities now in the DVB project. That information is on the DVB website. Anyone got a question for John Pising while he is up here on the podium?
I'm up on the podium twice this afternoon.
It's true.
Thanks to Ranjit, who keeps twisting my arm. Thank you, Ranjit.
And he runs high-quality unconference sessions too, I can tell you. So look forward to those tomorrow. John, specifications, it's a lot of paper, right? Well, it's not paper anymore. How is that whole situation evolving in terms of, we talk a lot in these organizations about the way we make specs, the importance of things like GitHub and reference tools and so on. Do you see it evolving?
HbbTV, and for that matter DVB, deliver specifications to ETSI for formal standardization. So in the end, what ETSI say they will accept as input is a fait accompli for HbbTV delivering. So if ETSI said we will use GitHub Markdown tomorrow, and you must deliver in GitHub Markdown for all new documents or something, then we would have to do that. So it's, and equally, if they say, as long as they say you must deliver in Microsoft Word, then we have no option but to deliver in Microsoft Word.
Okay. Time for one quick question for John, if you wish. Otherwise, we will move on. John, thank you very much. A round of applause for John Pising, please. Great presentation. So we have Omdia's research director, Paul Gray, with us. He is, of course, something of a fixture at the HbbTV Symposium. Always good value. We have 10 minutes on the timer, or we will in a moment. See what you can tell us in 10 minutes, Paul. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Owen. And there's the timer rolling. Thank you very much indeed for inviting me again to speak. I realize that things have kind of come full circle, because the first time I spoke, which I think was 2017, it was a conference center owned by the Catholic Church, and now we have one, a Protestant one, which ensures some form of balance, I guess. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the TV market. Owen threatened me with all kinds of things, including a concealed trapdoor, that indeed I only have 8 to 10 minutes, and that I must leave space for questions. So I've left a lot of slides out, and do come and grab me over the next couple of days if you'd like more detail, and I'm happy to provide that. But one of the interesting things is that after 25 years or so of the global TV market being really quite homogenous, managing that shift from CRT to flat panels to digital with a lot of very, very common IP, and that the regionalization went out of it, I think we're now at a point where actually the global TV market is splitting into three. And that's before you add politics to it. So I think that tariffs, trade boundaries, and things like that will only accelerate this trend. But really what we see is almost three markets. And the first one is North America, and probably with it slightly longer term also Mexico and Brazil, which is becoming a battle of platforms and advertising. The business model is shifting away from making money on TV sets and instead to making money on ads and data that is delivered by those TV sets. And therefore, it's turning into a battle of installed base. In many ways, thinking about it's rather like the old ones of pay TV, where you thought about how many users you had, how many subscribers, and the revenue per user. At the moment, in that scramble to acquire users and eyeballs, and I've talked about the eyeball battle for some years, but this is now really we're entering the next phase of it, that people are happy to sell TVs below cost. You just have to look at the finances of Vizio or Roku to see that they're selling TVs at somewhere between -3% and -7% margin, just in that scramble for users. And that is really, really different. Also at the same time, of course, pay TV is collapsing in North America. Well, when you see how much they pay for pay TV, it's not really surprising, you know, that the level is 4 or 5 times per user compared to Europe. At the same time, consumers aren't quite aware of that because they've got on average 7 or 8 subscriptions, and when you add it all up, they're probably paying the same amount. They just don't think they are. So North America is really driven by ads and data now, and that is what's driving everybody's motivations. China is different again. Obviously, it's a media culture which is totally controlled by the government, and that makes it inaccessible to most global players without detailed alliances. Chinese consumers, as you know from every single piece of news that you read, are really pulling their horns in at the moment. But actually before that, they also started to change their behavior away from buying more and more TVs and refreshing them quickly. Chinese TV market peaked at the end of 2016, instantaneously about 60 million units a year. It's below 40 million now. So the market has taken a real battering, and that's driven by consumer shifts. That happened before Chinese consumers lost confidence. But when they buy a TV, they buy a really big one. So the average size shipping at the moment is over 60 inches. On 11/11 at the beginning of this week, of course, a shopping festival in China, you could buy a 100-inch TV or a 98-inch TV for less than $800. Okay, so you can wallpaper one room with television sets for really not very much money. So it's a very, very different market. I think we can expect many of the same factors and thinking of these very, very, very large sizes appearing here in Europe. Certainly Chinese brands are trying, and you can buy 98, 100-inch for really quite remarkable prices now. but it's into a whole different world. It's a different media culture, and it's about very, very, very big. Which leaves the rest of us. And we buy moderate sizes. Our TV markets are recovering and they're growing ever so gently in line with spendable incomes. We don't have an advertising culture, so the advertising revenues are rather smaller than elsewhere. Our consumers probably like buying quite nice TVs, both across developed Asia and Western Europe. So you can see that it's a moderation market with slow demand growth. Probably by the end of the forecast, we roughly get back to where we were in 2019 after the pandemic bulge in TV demand. But you can see it's a very, very different world. At the same time, we also have new brands playing. And I think it became conclusive from 2021 that Chinese brands were now breaking away. And we're into a fourth age of TV. The second age was as the Japanese took over, then the Koreans overtook the Japanese, and now it's the Chinese, quite definitely. So when you see what's going on in Europe, we have slow recovery in the TV market, but most importantly, the Chinese brands are now significantly changing the agenda. They are beginning to attack the Koreans. And I think most people I talk to, especially from Japanese companies, say, yes, this is 2006, when the Koreans really started to pose a significant threat to the Japanese. History is repeating, and the Chinese are now posing a serious threat to the Koreans. That doesn't mean that the battle is concluded. It means that the threat is there and the competitive intensity is going up in the market. I think one of the things to notice is that because these markets are differing in terms of standards, in terms of motivation, that probably regional designs become much more important than they did before. We're almost going back to a European TV will be developed in Europe because its requirements are so much different to one in North America or China, for example. So there's going to be some interesting tension building there. And I think there's big opportunities for local players and local development. Do not neglect, though, that Chinese companies are also being very, very fast executing on regionalization. Very, very fast indeed. Hisense is already one of the first into TV3 in Brazil, and of course in Freely in the UK. And at the same time, this shift, as I've talked about platforms, and thank you, it's been introduced already today, is that we have what I think is, and call the App Store moment, when you realize that what mattered far more in terms of smartphones was actually the App Store. That was the thing that unlocked smartphones and enabled the hardware to change and evolve. And I think we're in that point with TV now, with those TV platforms. And what is covered and serviced by platforms is going to be more important than just the hardware on its own. So I've just got a few concerns. Obviously, I've talked about the hardware model evolving to platforms, but HBB needs to decide what its part to play in that is. Is it neutral or is it partisan? The landscape is changing with the Chinese brands. They are trying to push very, very large sizes. In China, people like huge TVs and small rooms. In Europe, we've got small rooms. So do we want very large TVs? They're certainly trying that out. For them, it's a very strong competitive axis against the Koreans because these large sizes are made only in China. And finally, I think the question which platform owners and everybody else is asking, which is what can HbbTV do in a battle of platforms, audiences, and eyeballs to increase loyalty and engagement? And above all, what does HbbTV do for advertising outcomes? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Paul. Great to hear from you again. Always interesting stats there. China, I know that certainly in the DVB project, we talk a lot about China, and there's move around. There certainly seems to be interest around DVB-I, for example, in China. Do you see any possibility of HbbTV making inroads there?
I think one of the big differences that you have in China is that very few people watch broadcast. And in terms of anything that's happening on TV, then you have the dead hand of the government. You see that in particular with advertising, where advertising has really moved off the TV platforms in China. The smart TV advertising market in China is worth less than the UK. And that's across, what, 780 million households. At the same time, TikTok on mobile makes $29 billion a year in China. So I think it's a whole different market that is, because of the regulatory pressures, then you can see that they kind of squeezed the bag in one place and it popped out in mobile. So mobile video is huge. Advertising on mobile video is huge.
Okay. Anyone have a question for Paul? Take advantage here. I'd like to know a little bit more about what we've heard there. Don't be shy. Yes, John Moulding has a question. Let me come around to you, John, just a moment. Thank you to the porters for bringing additional chairs in, by the way. We're victims of our own success in terms of the numbers.
Hi, hello, Paul. Those brands that are selling their TVs for less than they actually cost, what do they hope to make in terms of recurring revenues from their advertising and data?
Great question, John. Thank you. And I should have put that in my presentation. I think our estimate, and obviously there are big differences between platforms, but you look at the best in class and they are probably making something like $20 a year. And if we assume that the smart TV platform remains active for, say, 5 years before the TV is maybe moved to another room, or there are compliance problems and things like that that mean that it gets out of date and can't be updated. I think as a rule of thumb, let's say $100 of recurring revenue. And just to build on that point, then therefore the number of active accounts that you get from every 1,000 TVs sold is really critical. Yeah, if you looked at Vizio's numbers earlier this year, they were only gaining about 10% out of their TVs that they were selling, and so that conversion rate is absolutely critical as to whether this business model actually works.
Thanks. Raise your hand if you have a question. Paul, as someone who lives in a house that has a 10-year-old Samsung smart TV and a second-hand Sony smart TV of some sort that we bought for kids to play games on, with a Google TV dongle plugged into both, is this kind of experience going to become more and more typical, where there's absolutely no drive for us to replace that set in our living room because the media is not coming, the TV is not enabling the media that we're watching, in our household at least?
No, I think this is the really critical one, which is how much do people use their platforms? And there are a lot of cheap ways that you can use to subvert that subsidized business model of TVs and platforms. And one of them is you buy the TV that has the best image, and then you plug in and sideload a streaming stick with the app platform that you like best. So it's a precarious game. We'll see where it ends up. I think the other one in Europe is you see huge differences in advertising values between markets. So everybody's focused on Germany and the UK because that's where the money is. But just like the Geneva traffic jams on Saturday mornings, where you have the Swiss going off to buy their groceries in France and the French coming across the border into Switzerland to buy electrical products because of arbitrage, across Europe with free movement of goods, that's really, really difficult to make it happen and target those right markets. I think it's very, very precarious.
But do you have a prediction? Well, I mean, you're looking at this every day. What do you see happening in terms of screens versus, as you say, sideloading?
I think that at the moment, a lot of it depends on rising stock prices and the ability to borrow money, but very definitely for some people it will end in tears. And that the more platforms you're having, that's diluting that message. So we are still at the early stages before the consolidation happens.
Okay, certainly implications for HbbTV in all of that as well, of course. Thank you very much. Thanks, Paul. So we're very honored to be hosted here. The co-host of this event is Everyone TV. And the next talk that we have, the next keynote we have, is from the Chief Executive Officer of Everyone TV, Jonathan Thompson. Now, before Jonathan comes to the stage, I want to say that, in fact, the next whole set of presentations is around Everyone TV and Freely and so on. So we're going to hear from different aspects of the service, and we're going to have a roundtable that William Cooper is going to be hosting. So we're not going to take questions immediately after Jonathan's talk. We want to take advantage, give him the full 15-minute slot so that he can tell us everything, introduce the service to us. Then we'll move on to Chris Poole and so on in the program, and there will be plenty of time for questions. And Jonathan, of course, will be here as well. So if we need to come to him for any of those questions, but his colleagues will be here also. So without saying more, I'm going to invite Jonathan Thompson to the stage. Thank you, Jonathan.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Thanks, Owen. Actually, before I say anything, I'm going to play a short video to introduce Freely. So if we could run the first VT.
Ooh! Serious. Come on!
God.
Get set, go! What the hell?
Wow, that really echoes in the church hall, doesn't it? It's a great honor to be here this afternoon. Yes, it is afternoon now. Everyone TV has been a long supporter of HbbTV, I think almost for a decade now. So it's an honor to speak here and talk about Freely. And also it's an honor to be hosting this year's symposium in London. So thank you to Vincent for choosing London as the host city. Yeah, I'm going to talk to you about Freely, and I'm going to explain how we've used HbbTV to allow us to launch this service. The story of Freely is really a story of how the UK broadcasters and many other partners have collaborated to shape the future of free TV in the UK in the streaming age. But before I talk about Freely specifically, let me just explain for those of you who don't know Everyone TV, who we are, what we do, and how we fit into the UK TV landscape. So Everyone TV is a joint venture. It is owned by the 4 public service broadcasters in the UK, by BBC, ITV, Channel 4, and Channel 5. And our mission fundamentally is to ensure the long-term health of free television in the UK. That's why we exist. And we do that through the model of collaboration, through broadcasters working together to deliver the best outcomes for viewers. Our history lies in the management of the UK's 2 free-to-air TV platforms. We've operated Freeview for almost 2 decades now, and that's evolved into Freeview Play, which itself embraced the HbbTV standard when we launched that in 2015. And 3 years ago, we also took on responsibility for managing Freesat. And we continue to support and operate those 2 platforms of the 2 main ways currently you can get free-to-air television in the UK and enjoyed by millions of customers. But as I say, the future, as we've heard this morning, is streaming, and Freely is our future. We launched Freely in April of this year as our step into that streaming future and providing viewers with a free TV service fit for the streaming age. Now, the reasons we launched Freely were really down to kind of three big strategic trends in the UK marketplace. The first of which is that despite the plethora of different devices that we all have in our houses in terms of tablets and mobiles, people still want to watch the shows they love on the best screen in their house, and that is their smart TV. So still 84% of TV viewing is on the smart TV. Unsurprisingly, when you want to watch a really great show like Ludwig or I'm a Celebrity, or whatever else it might be, you want to watch it on the best screen. So smart TV viewing is definitely the future. It's where viewers want to spend their time with the content they love. The second trend is the growing number of households in the UK who no longer connect that smart TV to a broadcast connection. So they're no longer plugging their smart TV into an aerial or a satellite feed, and all their TV consumption is now over the internet. Now, as of the end of last year, that was 1 in 5 households in the UK who were effectively internet only, IP only in their TV consumption. But it's forecast to grow to be over half of households by the end of this decade. And as some people will be familiar, the government themselves have kicked off a process of looking at the potential long-term transition to an IP-only future. And we wanted to ensure that we were involving our services to respond to that trend. And the third strategic challenge really was one that's familiar to every TV market in the world, is the growing level of choice and competition that national broadcasters face. And that choice is great for consumers and it's great for the marketplace more generally, but it means that national broadcasters have to think about how they can ensure that their content is easy to find and easy to discover and easy to enjoy. So it was those three strategic trends that led us to think about the future of how we evolved our TV services. And before I talk about Freely, it's just worth noting that this isn't UK specific. I've had the opportunity over the last year or so in terms of rolling out Freely to talk to broadcasters from lots of different countries, to the national broadcasters in each of those markets. And whilst the dynamics within each of those markets are very different, the fundamental strategic trends are the same. And I suppose the thing that we advocate to all of them is the importance of national broadcasters working together to secure their own future, I think rings true in each one of these marketplaces. So let me talk about Freely. And first of all, before I show you the service, I just want to talk about kind of the principles that underpinned its development. And there were really 6 fundamental principles. And the first is a word I will use a fair amount in the next 10 minutes or so, which is about collaboration. We are a vehicle for collaboration between the 4 main public service broadcasters, but our entire model is based on partnership. We work very closely with TV manufacturers, with TV OS providers, with other content partners in the UK, and with retailers as well. And the entire way in which the UK ecosystem works for free-to-air TV is based on that principle of partnership. And that lies at the heart of how we brought Freely to market. The principle of Freely for us was to make the opportunity to watch live and on-demand free TV as native and as simple for the viewer. So the way in which we've used HbbTV is to adopt the op-app specification, the operator application specification, to effectively integrate the Freely service at a system level. So it's not just an app sitting in the App Store. We have worked with our partners to integrate the Freely surface into the native UX and OS of our partner devices. And I'll show that in the demo in a second. And what that allows us to do, again, is to have multiple different ways in which a viewer can access the content they want to watch, all of which are simple and intuitive, very natural for any viewer who's been used to a Freeview TV, but again, embracing the latest technology and embracing the streaming proposition. As I've said, it's based on HbbTV, the latest standard that was released, I believe, last year, and that means it is now available on the smart TVs coming to market this year. So we launched in April, and we are now on a range of different partner devices that have come into the marketplace this year. And our focus for launch is very much on smart TVs for the reason I through the Freely application, again, seamlessly allowing you to navigate in a fairly traditional, familiar way, which is still important for a lot of viewers, between the various different channels and what's on, but again, with the opportunity to go both to live and into on-demand. So simple, easy. In a way, it looks and feels much like a Freeview TV does today, but with a huge benefit that even if you don't have your aerial connected, it works seamlessly. Now, I said at the start, our model is one of collaboration. There are all kinds of different organizations we have worked with to bring Freely to market. We work with, of course, all our shareholders, and we are bringing other content partners onto the platform. So we announced UK TV, who joined earlier this year, and there will be a number of other content partners who will be coming to the platform very soon. So watch this space when we announce those. As I said, we launched with Hisense, but we're incredibly proud and pleased with the range of different smart TV partners that we are now working with. So a range of different devices from Vestel, from Sharp, Panasonic, and of course Hisense as our launch partner. And we also have agreements with 3 TV operating system providers, so Vida, TiVo, and also more recently announced Amazon Fire TV. And I know quite a few of those players are in the audience this afternoon. A huge thank you to all of them for being our partners and working so closely with us. As Rick said earlier, we've worked with UView as our technology partner in delivering the service, and a huge thanks to Rick and his team for all the work they have done. We wouldn't have been able to do this without them, and also with the DTG and HbbTV, and also working very closely with retailers so that we can work to encourage a customer going in store to buy a Freely TV. If we can just quickly play the marketing reel. Just to bring that alive, Freely is more than just a product proposition. It's more than just a technology solution. It is a TV platform that we market and support with our partners. So we're really proud and pleased with the Fremoji, the Freely logo. And we put a lot of muscle and money into marketing the Freely proposition, not only to consumers to explain what it is, to encourage them to buy it, but also in partnership with our manufacturers and retailers so that we can promote specific TVs, specific price points, and tell them where to go in store to get the best deal for a Freely television. That's a really important part of the value hopefully we bring back to the partners who we're working with. One of the great benefits of the OPAP model and of using HbbTV is that it's software that we are running on the TV that we can evolve. We launched with the proposition we're very proud of, but it was an MVP, and we will continue to evolve and develop the service over time. And we can do that through working with the UView team, adding new features, new functionality. So for example, making continuous improvements to the UX, adding new ways to find and discover content, continually improving the performance for viewers so it works seamlessly, it works reliably, and adding new features that viewers increasingly expect to see. So new forms of personalization, offering a service that is tailored to the individual viewer. And again, we have new features coming very soon that will allow greater personalization of the content you want to watch being displayed within the Freely service. I think I'm almost dead on time. So that is largely it from me. Thanks again to all the partners who are in the room who've been part of the journey. There's a lot more we want to do and will do, but Freely is our future. We want Freely to be the future of free-to-air TV in the UK. And I believe there are at least 2 demo TVs, I think, outside in the breakout room. So go and have a play. But thank you again, and thank you for listening.
That's really fantastic. Thank you, Jonathan. It looks just great. You've done a great job, and congratulations to everybody who's behind it. Let's get Chris Poole from BBC R&D up here. Chris is going to dive into the technology a little bit, look into the engine, see how all of this works. Chris, it's over to you. We're going to put 10 minutes on the clock there, and we'll have time for a few questions for you after it.
Okay, thank you. Right, okay. So how do we build a great linear channel viewing experience for internet-delivered channels using HbbTV? Well, I'm going to try and answer that a little bit in the context of Freely. So as you've seen, a linear channel experience might look something like that. The interesting points to note is it's simple, it's consistent, whether you're watching a broadcast channel or an IP channel. It's also very responsive. So let's just take that apart and see how it works. So what you saw on the screen there is actually 3 separate elements. There's the linear content itself over on the right-hand side. There's the user interface. And we've also got support for broadcaster red button applications, HbbTV applications that are delivered by the broadcaster directly to the television as well. So the linear channels on Freely might be IP or DTT. And let's see who does what. So the TV is responsible for presenting the DTT linear channels. TV also handles parts of the user interface. Here I'm just showing setup and settings. The TV also handles and manages the full channel list. So the channel list and the notion of current channel, and provides the all-important HbbTV stack that enables both platform and content provider applications to run. At the top of the screen, regular HbbTV applications delivered by the broadcaster, as I mentioned. And then we have the Freely user interface here provided by an HbbTV operator app. HbbTV operator apps have been used before, notably by the HD Plus platform in Germany. And subject to a bilateral agreement with the TV manufacturer, they allow the operator app to take over some functions that might otherwise be provided by the television's own user interface. So here you can see some of those screens that Jonathan was showing earlier. Got a linear EPG, a VOD content discovery screen, and the user interface while you're actually watching a linear channel with routes to onward journeys and onward content. So where we differ a little bit from what's been done before is concerned with how the IP linear channels are presented. So on Freely, this is done by a player component, which is delivered and packaged as part of the operator application, but is actually running in a separate context in the TV. And this is a new capability in the latest version of the operator application specification, and it has a number of advantages, which I'll come to in a moment. One thing to note is it's fully integrated with the TV linear channels kind of selection mechanisms, so that all of the capabilities that you have for a DTT channel are also available for IP services too. So what's different about what we're doing to what's been done before? So we have the TV managing the whole channel list. There's IP services as well as broadcast ones in the channel list and known to the television. So previous platforms using operator applications, the IP services have generally been included in the guide, but they're not known to the television. So that gives you a kind of an illusion of there being channels that are similar to broadcast ones, but sometimes kind of cracks appear in that kind of illusion if you bring up some residual part of the TV's own user interface, for example, for audio track selection or something, which doesn't have the information about the channel that you're watching. So here we've got the TV fully aware of all of the channels on the platform that you can select. We also have full support for HbbTV applications, red button services across all channels, IP and broadcast. Again, that's partly enabled by the fact that the TV has visibility of all of these IP channels, so you can have all of that HbbTV functionality carried forward for IP services, and yeah, also there on IP-only devices. And then the separate player component in the app, what does this give us? Well, it handles all of the complexity of integration with the individual distribution architectures of the content providers, and manages the kind of the many-to-many integration challenge that you might have otherwise between every single content provider and every single manufacturer. It's an approach that allows that component to evolve over time. For example, we can improve the streaming algorithms and so on in the player. We could introduce low latency streaming for linear channels in the future. That's all under the control of that application. It allows for fast channel change. We're not having to start an application afresh on each channel just to get pictures on the screen. So it's pretty responsive when you change channel. The player can immediately just present the correct content for that channel. It works with red button apps. What do I mean by that? Well, in HbbTV, red button apps can do things like place the channel video in a quarter screen window, or change audio tracks, or pause the video. All of that functionality is also available here. The red button apps can use exactly the same mechanisms as they do for broadcast channels, and the APIs that they call through to the television are passed through to the op-app video player, giving all of that functionality to IP channels as well. So kind of a theme here of trying to make sure that we're not losing any of the capabilities that we had for broadcast when we move to hybrid platforms and IP. And we can build a fully featured player. What do I mean by that? Well, we have full support for DVB Dash, implemented by UView using the Dash.js JavaScript Dash player. That has support for CDN failover. Access services, you can see in the picture there, subtitles. Those are being rendered by the app in the case of the IP services, according to the viewer preferences set up in the television. So again, seamless behavior there. It can handle authorization, DRM, ad insertion, again updatable over time, and telemetry, reporting back to the individual content providers as necessary via a kind of plug-in mechanism. So full-featured player, updatable as well. So if we briefly look outside the television into the wider system, we have a number of